Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here, and welcome to Movie Reviews, where we review movies. Today I'm going to be talking about Velvet Buzzsaw, directed by Dan Gilroy, who a few years back directed Nightcrawler, and what a great movie that is. I mean, it just has great satirical elements, it's so well made, it's so entertaining, it's darkly funny, has an amazing performance from Jake Gyllenhaal. So I was excited when the trailer came out for this movie, a horror comedy, weird horror comedy set in the art world, reuniting Jake Gyllenhaal and Rene Russo with him, and also bringing along John Malkovich, Debbie Diggs, Zaw Ashton, and Toni Collette. I mean, I was like, damn, this movie looks really fun. And I just want this movie to be fun, and I want to have a good time at it. You know, I don't even need to take it too seriously. But watching the movie, it's the movie that takes itself too seriously, unfortunately. Tonally, this movie is just a mess. And look, if it's funny in parts, and the next scene it's really scary, and then the next scene it's really thought-provoking, and it's actually genuinely all those things, I don't really care if it's tonally uneven. What I care about is the fact that it wasn't very funny, and it wasn't very scary, and it wasn't very thought-provoking, and I just didn't really care. I mean, let's start with the comedy. Like, Jake Gyllenhaal, I think, is the best part about this movie. He seems to know what he's doing with his character and what he's bringing more than the director does. I mean, he made me laugh the most in the movies. I will give it to the movie. There are some laughs to be found, especially just making fun of the pretension of these art world dealers. A lot of the other cast members, like Toni Collette, Rene Russo, they all have their moments of being, you know, a little over the top, a little fun, but unfortunately the screenplay is just not handing them enough to do. You know, these actors are so ready to unleash, like, the weirdness, but the screenplay often just muddles around in these scenes where you're getting this dramatic dialogue and it's kind of taking itself seriously. There's a whole romantic relationship going on that I just did not care about. And this movie is giving me so many hints that it's just goofy, but then it's not being the goofy that I need it to be. I would have loved to see this movie lean so much harder into the comedy and into itself just being kind of campy and fun. And unfortunately, it just wasn't that. I rarely laughed aside from these kind of witty lines that make fun of art dealers, and that was really all there was in terms of comedy. I mean, there are just scenes where I'm like, there's not a joke to be found, there's no underlying, like, humor to any of the scenes. It felt almost like generic how it was handling its subject. I mean, yes, the movie has a very original concept. You've never seen a horror comedy in the art world, but for that, it is probably the most generic version of that you could think of. The drama is just hokey, and it's not in a way where it's being self-aware and making fun of itself at all. And like, it was almost doing that, and I was like, just make fun of yourself. You have right here a ridiculous movie, and you're just not making fun of yourself enough. It's corny, and not in the way that you want it to be. It felt like a Netflix TV movie, and we're talking about Robert Elswit doing cinematography, who did such a great job with Nightcrawler, is a legend for what he's done with Paul Thomas Anderson, an Academy Award-winning cinematographer. You couldn't tell in this movie. Let's discuss the horror scenes. When a horror movie comes out from an interesting director nowadays, I get excited because for the past maybe 5 years or so, directors have been doing an excellent job of subverting the horror genre and bringing in new psychological terrors and reinventing the way that they're scaring people, because the movies in the 2000s, the horror movies just kind of sucked. This movie looks like it has not even learned from the shitty things in those movies. It is that. The death scenes are all the same. They're not scary. They're not suspenseful. They're not interesting. It's just somebody who's like, you know, finds themselves in a strange situation, some shitty CGI, the painting's moving a little bit, and then something grabs them or something happens, like, and that's it. And that's a shitty fucking horror scene, and every single one is like that. Even the score by Marco Beltrami, who did such a great job with A Quiet Place, is not doing the movie any favors. It does hint at like this kind of goofy tone, but it does not work with what is on screen. It does not work with the dialogue. The dialogue is, I don't want to say it's well crafted. I'm going to say that it is crafted, because you can tell there's a lot of effort put into it. But what does it do for the movie? I mean, it makes you want to pay attention to it because it's kind of dense, but there's nothing there. As far as the satire goes, this movie is not doing much more than just kind of poking fun at the pretentiousness of the art world and the corruptness where everybody's kind of doing these things for money, which should not be the case because it's art. And I mean, I can get that from freaking an Adam Ruins Everything clip on YouTube. This movie does not go deeper than that. And the character who maybe has the most screen time, other than Jake Gyllenhaal, maybe more than Jake Gyllenhaal, is the character of Josephina, who I'm not going to blame the actress for this character being bad, because I'm sure she could be great in something else. But I gotta say, when you've got all these other cast members who are kind of goofy and ready to be weird at any moment, and then this other character who's on screen all the time is very serious. This is an extremely serious character who has nothing interesting going on, who, whenever you cut to her, it's like, it's not fun to watch her. Like, Jake Gyllenhaal is the person who's fun to watch in this movie, and why is she getting all the attention? Any character arcs, any character development that's going on, any conflicts that rise up are cut short at the climax of this movie, and for no reason. There's just nothing there. And by the end of the movie, I just didn't really care. I will say that the last shot that plays over the credits is kind of an interesting visual metaphor, but other than that, there's like no substance here. It's not funny, it's not scary, it's not interesting, and it's just completely tonally mismatched, and I did not have fun watching it. And you can see so much potential in this movie if it just leaned into the comedy more, that it could be such a fun movie. But it did not, and therefore, I have to give this movie a 4 out of 10. And I don't necessarily recommend it. I mean, if you want to check it out, go ahead. And no Oscars. No Oscars for this one. It's not going to get any Oscars. Did you see the movie? Do you agree with me? Is there any movie that you'd like to see me or Brother Bo review next? Let me know.